How long have you been in the same role? How long have you been in the same company? How long have you been sitting there feeling like you know you could do more? You know you could be more. Yet it's just not happening for you. And meanwhile, mediocre people are getting ahead, but you are still exactly where you are. My name's Taz. I'm a woman. I'm brown. I grew up in Birmingham. I was raised by a single mum on free school meals. I've spent the last few years navigating corporate exec life. And what I've learned over the years is there is a set of corporate rules nobody is saying out loud. And that's why I created this podcast. This space is for us to unpack those rules and to help you figure out how you want to navigate the system and engage with it. I would love for you to follow on Office Real Talk on Instagram or TikTok and subscribe on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts so we can get more of us listening and winning in the corporate world. Welcome to today's episode where we're going to talk about how playing it safe is keeping you stuck. That is so common in the corporate world, and I hear people talk to me about it all the time. How many times have you thought, you know what, I'm going to go and do something different. I'm going to make a move. I'm going to put myself out there, but you've held yourself back and talked yourself out of it. Today, I want to talk about that. I want to unpack that, where those beliefs come from, and talk about how we are seriously talking ourselves out of the success that we truly could get because we want to stay safe. Let's start with staying somewhere for a long time. If you've been in your role for over 3 years and you've been told you're really good at your job, you've been told you're talented, the truth is progression is probably not going to happen for you, and you've probably been parked. Now, that's quite hard to admit. What happens is the organisation starts putting a label on you. And they see you in that way, regardless of what you do. Now, that doesn't mean that can't change. Of course it can. And so many things can be different. But if you stay exactly where you are, you fall in a box. And those boxes can be things like they're great at executing. They're a great individual contributor. They're a great people leader. They're great at doing this piece of strategy. They're great at working on these kinds of things. Those labels are put on us whether we like it or not. And the longer you stay somewhere, you will get more and more work that aligns to your strengths and your skills, and that reinforces that you're good at it because you are good, but it reinforces that label upon you. What that means is you don't get seen as more than you are, even though you know you could be more and do more. So you're parked and you're going to be kept where you are. You know that you can do more. So you're sitting there hoping, waiting that you're going to get tapped on the shoulder and someone's going to say, do you know what? Come here and do this job. Do you know what? I think you can do more. I'd love you to apply. I think you can go to the next level. I think you can do that job. Let me tell you something. There are very few times when that will happen in your career in the same organisation that you're in, unless there is a really, really good sponsor or leader somewhere. It's not common and it doesn't happen to everyone. So based on that, if you're sitting there hoping that the opportunity is going to come, that the role is going to arrive and someone's going to say to you, let me lift you out of here and go there, that is highly unlikely. And what's happening is you are staying somewhere that you are comfortable. You're good. You're getting praise. And what you've convinced yourself is that that loyalty will be enough. And loyalty is really, really good. It's very noble, but it doesn't give you enough leverage. And let me tell you one thing, it certainly does not pay. By staying loyal to the role you're in, your line manager, your organisation, when you know that you could do more, when you know you can be more, when you've been told you're really good, is something then that you make a choice to do. So if you are feeling stuck because you've been in the same role, same team, same organisation for a long time, you have to think about where that loyalty is. Is it placed well or is it blind loyalty? If there is no next step and you can't see it and you're not being pulled into it, you have been parked. The next thing that happens to so many successful people, because we're perfectionists, because we need to be good, we need to feel good, we need to feel like we can hit the ground running, is we wait until we're 100% ready. There's no such thing as being 100% ready. I have never, ever felt 100% ready for anything I've done. Because when you start waiting to feel 100% ready, you end up waiting forever. And I see so many talented people, some of the best people I know, sitting there, overthinking, waiting till they feel 100% ready to go for a job. You look at that job description, you look at all of the things on it, and you sit there and go, well, I can't do all of them. And therefore, you don't go for the job because you don't feel 100% ready. You feel like you need to be overqualified to go for the job. Meanwhile, there are mediocre people who look at it and go, I can probably do some of that. I know I can't do all of that. And they are going for those jobs. What you are doing is delaying. You're sitting there and going, I might go for it. I might go for it. I might go for it. And what I see all the time is on the last day of a job opening, people go, I'm going to apply now. And then you're all rushing in. You're all anxious. You're not on your best, you're not your best self. You're not putting your best foot forward because you've sat there and really, really, really toyed with your own value and your own worth. That's what's keeping you stuck. You never need to feel 100% ready for any job. Look at the job description. Can you do most of it? Can you do some of it? What's the worst that could happen if you shoot your shot? You don't get through the application stage. You don't get invited for an interview. You've got nothing to lose. So what if that happens? Nobody dies. You've got to shoot your shot. And then you figure out how to do the job later once you're in it. Never, ever in my career have I taken a job and felt like I could do it 100% from the minute I've put myself forward into it. I've always known there are elements of the job I can't do, and I learn them as I go, because that is what you do when you want to get ahead. The delaying, the waiting to feel ready, the holding back means that you're keeping yourself stuck. There's so much research that shows that men apply when they're like 60% ready and women wait until they're 100% ready. We need more of that energy. Just do the damn thing, apply, and don't worry about staying exactly where you are. When you're worried about overqualifying yourself, you're opting yourself out. Meanwhile, mediocre people are opting themselves in. And that is the difference between why great people don't get what they deserve and good people get ahead. So many of you will be in organizations as well where you can't see a really clear path. You can't see any growth. The economy is tough at the moment, right? The job market's hard. There'll be a lot of people saying, you know what, we're not recruiting for those kind of jobs anymore. Whether that's because we're over-investing in technology or AI is going to take the jobs or, all of that kind of narrative. You'll also be looking around and going, I do this kind of work. I can't see that the organization is going to go in that direction much longer. You might also be thinking about, actually, I haven't seen many people recruit where I live or in this area. There's always talks of budget cuts. Organizations are constantly restructuring, and all of that will feel unnerving. Yet, because you're good, because you're strong, because you think you work really hard, you think that you won't get impacted by any of that. But there is a lack of growth available where you are. And you're hoping that your great performance will create an opportunity for someone to push you forward. What you're not facing is the reality of what's happening, that you can't see a clear path. You're not seeing people like you get promoted. What you're not seeing is the job that you want next opening up. What you're not telling yourself is the people who are in the jobs that you want are not leaving. What you're not telling yourself is that people in your building, your department, your location are not getting promoted, are not getting new jobs. And until you sit with that harsh truth and admit it to yourself, every time there is a reality in front of you that's telling you this is a dead-end zone maybe for you, you are choosing again to stay stuck. And of course there are dead-end zones in organizations. Of course there are. And some organizations tell you that with chest. They're like, look, that opportunity is not going to materialize here. You need to go and look for that somewhere else. Some don't, because they don't feel the need to. And why would they if you're just going to keep showing up every day and working hard when you know and they know you could do more? Therefore, you have a choice. But if you refuse to admit to yourself what is happening around you and the reality of the situation that you're in, you only have yourself to blame. You cannot outperform a ceiling that someone has imposed on you. You cannot. And the last thing about feeling stuck. So many of us are working really, really hard in silence. And that doesn't mean we're quiet. That doesn't mean we're, wallflowers. That doesn't mean we're not speaking up in meetings. None of that stuff, because we do that. We do that well. We don't do it all the time. We might sometimes, have that inner voice saying, I wish I'd said more. But we can do our jobs and we do them well. But what we're not doing is signaling our ambition. And I've been guilty of this as well before. What we're not doing is saying to someone, this is what I want. This is where I want to get to. This is who I want to be. And when we're not signaling that ambition, how can we expect people to know? We assume that because we work really, really hard, that people will just assume we're ambitious. People will think, oh, she's really driven. She really wants to get on. But have you ever said that to anybody? Have you written it down? Have you told someone? Have you seen a job and gone, do you know what? I'm going to tell them I want that job, even if it's a promotion. Have you sat down and let the people that you work for and work around know what the next goal is? And that doesn't have to be a job title. Often we hold ourselves back because we keep thinking it has to be a job title. We keep thinking we need to know that 5-year plan, that 10-year plan, and that job title. Do you know how many times I've been asked about my 5-year plan? I hate that question. Yes, you should know loosely what that needs to be. But I don't think you need to commit to a job title. You need to kind of say, this is where I see myself in the future. I know I can do that job. I want to put myself forward. Let me tell you my own story. There are so many times where I've thought, actually, I could do that job. And I've not told anybody I want to do that job. And there's so many times where I've not wanted to do a job and people have assumed I have. And I still haven't told them I actually don't want to do that job. This works both ways. But depending on where you are in your career, you have to be vocal about what you want. If you're not, let's go back to those mediocre people. They will keep talking about what they want. And when really great people aren't talking about what they want, there is space for mediocre people to fill those jobs. And that happens time and time again in organizations. And that is why so many of us, as ambitious people, high performers, sit there and go, how come they got there? But you are working really hard in silence. You're not signaling ambition. You're not visible. You're not challenging around, why can't it be me? You're not asking the questions around, what would it take for you to trust me in that role? You're not asking what's missing, what gaps do I have? And unless you're asking those questions, how is A, anybody meant to know what you want? But B, how are you meant to close those gaps to get there? And look, at that point, if they tell you the gaps and you believe them, you can decide to make a choice to work on those gaps. If you don't believe them, you can decide to move. But so many of us never ask in the first place. And the few of us that do ask get an answer that we don't like and still stay where we are because we will not move, because moving is scary. Quiet competence and quiet capability is invisible. You cannot expect to walk into a chip shop and for someone to read your mind about what you want. You have to ask for the damn thing. Work is not much more complicated than that. I always say life and work are very, very similar and we just overcomplicate one. In life, you have to ask for what you want. At work, you have to ask for what you want. In life, we don't expect people to read our minds. Why should we expect the same at work? These are the corporate rules nobody says out loud. And staying stuck can be a decision. So what I want you to do is sit there and ask yourself, am I staying stuck because of what's happening around me? Is there a ceiling imposed on me? Is the organisation and the environment I'm in signalling that there will not be progress here? Have I chosen not to do anything about that? And if the answer to that is yes, ask yourself why. Comfort is not a career strategy. Thanks for listening.